Liberty once lost is lost forever. When the people once surrender their share of the legislature and their right of defending the limitations upon the government and of resisting every encroachment upon them, they can never regain it. So as we begin, we want to begin again with some of that optimism and hope. And we're going to hear from Mrs. Lamboy's first grade class, who is going to recite the preamble to the Constitution. So it's now my pleasure to introduce to you the headmaster of secondary, Dr. Henke, who's going to conduct this year's swearing in of our new scholar government. We have some new changes this year, so he's going to tell us a little bit about the changes to our scholar government, give us some historical perspective, and then he's going to conduct the swearing in ceremony. Dr. Henke.
Thank you, Norman. Scholars, you look good. I'm excited for our first assembly this Friday in this building. We see some Republic spirit. I want to talk a little bit about the first presidential oath of office taken with President George Washington. George Washington did not want to be president. He had spent years in the field in public office serving our country, fighting the British. He spent years out sleeping in tents. He spent years sacrificing. In his old age, he said, he wanted to stay home and run the farm, run the plantation. He wanted to give up public office. But the people of the United States asked him to serve again. George Washington said, I have one quote about his not wanting to accept the post. He said, accepting the post would be the greatest sacrifice of my personal feelings and wishes that ever I've been called upon to make. It would be to forego repose and domestic enjoyment for trouble, perhaps for public obloquy. For I should consider myself as entering upon an unexplored field. That's got to be scary for a general to enter an unexplored field. Enveloped on every side with clouds of darkness. But the people asked, the people called. Now, a lot of people were responsible for the eventual acceptance of the Constitution of the United States. Great men were playing the part. Thomas Jefferson mentoring a lot of the delegates from behind the scenes, and also a powerful voice for freedom. We have Madison and Hamilton and Jay writing the Federalist Papers to convince mostly New York, but also all of the states to accept the document. We had several people influencing the acceptance of that. Probably the two most influential were Benjamin Franklin and George Washington. Even though they weren't writing, besides, I need to be careful, they weren't writing public essays, but they were writing letters. George Washington actually wrote more than any of the founders when you consider the letters being written. And they were all having influence. James Madison said, be assured, Washington's influence carried this government, and it really did. As the Constitution was adopted state by state, it calls for an electoral college to choose the president. And by the Constitution, the electoral college was supposed to meet on March 4th. However, due to a rainy spring and muddy roads, we're still in the horse and buggy carriage stage. The delegates could not get to New York City which was the national capital at the time. They could not get to New York City in time, and so the Electoral College actually didn't meet to open the ballots and count them until April 6th, 1789. On that day, the Electoral College met, counted the ballots, and named George Washington as the unanimous voice for President of the United States, with John Adams as Vice President. Now, George Washington had his inaugural at the Federal Hall in New York. And I just want to paint for you just a little picture so you can see what was going on before. George Washington left his Mount Vernon near today's Washington, D.C. in Virginia, and he traveled mostly by buggy and then boat as he hit the different rivers, all the way up to New York. As he traveled, the people came out, aligned the roads. He had a constant parade for days. Every town he hit, he was met with city officials and fanfare. They would play bands, they would shoot off cannons, and they escorted him all the way to New York City. As he hit New York City, and he's getting on a small boat to get across the bay, he was escorted by small boats, large boats, all carrying colorful flags. Staten Island gave him a 13 cannon salute. It was answered by two warships. One was the British ship, gave back a 13-gun salute, and then the Spanish ship, Galveston, also echoed back with 13 cannon salute. That Spanish ship was carrying the flags of 20 different countries, all to acknowledge the new government and the new president being sworn in. As George Washington came to dock, there was a carpeted entrance. He got on the carpet. There followed several orations, poetry. There was a lot of flowers, decorations. Thousands upon thousands of New Yorkers there to welcome him. The next morning, a joint committee from the newly assembled Congress came to escort George Washington to the Federal Hall. They escorted him to the Federal Hall, and that's where the swearing-in took place. Once the crowd had been quieted, the Supreme Court justices had not been installed in office, and so they had William Livingston, who was the New York's highest-ranking judicial officer, swear them into office. Samuel Otis, Secretary of the United States Senate, lifted an ornate leather-covered Bible along with a plush red cushion it was resting on, and he took his place between Washington and Livingston. When Washington saw that Livingston was ready, he put his right hand on the Bible. The Chancellor asked, "Do you solemnly swear that you will faithfully execute the office of President of the United States and will, to the best of your ability, preserve, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States?" Washington answered, "I do solemnly swear that I will faithfully execute the office of President," and he went on to continue. He repeated the oath in first person. Then, when the oath was finished, by the way, you can read in your constitutions the oath. When the oath was finished, George Washington unexpectedly added these words, "So help me God." And then he bowed and he kissed the Bible. Livingston said, "It is done." Turning to the crowd, he gestured towards the new president and shouted, "Long live George Washington, President of the United States." We, in our small way, have simulated the American constitutional form of government. As you know, we had 14 brave scholars declare their candidacy to run for president. Eventually we had, after campaigning, we eventually had a primary election, narrowed that down to 2 scholars. Our electoral college met last Friday. I was pleased to know all grades were represented, and the electors took the responsibility seriously and debated fervently, or I would say, I don't know if there was much debate, there was a lot of just fervent questions and discussion, and by the end of it, they had a vote and have named Sharon Phillips the new Scholar Body President. President Lexi Mitchell. We are now going to swear them into office. Sharon Phillips, will you please come to the mic? Sharon, you've been elected Scholar Body President to represent your fellow scholars. Sharon, do you agree to support the mission of John Adams Academy and to adhere to our 10 core values?
I do.
Please raise your right hand to take your oath. And in the presence of honored guests and the John Adams community here assembled, repeat after me. I state your name.
I, Sharon Phillips,
Do solemnly pledge
do solemnly pledge
to faithfully execute the office of President
to faithfully execute the office of President
of John Adams Academy Scholar Government
of John Adams Academy Scholar Government
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to commit myself to serving the interests of the scholar body,
to commit myself to serving the interests of the scholar body,
and to further the goals and objectives
and to further the goals and
of
objectives
John Adams Academy.
of John Adams Academy.
On behalf of the Faculty Administration Board of John Adams Academy, I hereby install you as President of John Adams Academy Scholar Government. Congratulations.
All right. Perfect. Okay. It is my honor to be able to swear in my awesome, amazing Vice President Lexi Mitchell. Can you come up to the microphone, please? Lexi Mitchell, do you agree to support the mission of John Adams Academy and to adhere to our 10 core values?
I do.
Please raise your right hand and take the oath of office. Repeat after me. In the presence of honored guests
In the presence of honored guests
and the members here assembled,
and the members here assembled,
I, insert your name,
I, Lexi Mitchell,
do solemnly pledge
do solemnly pledge
to faithfully execute
the
office of Vice President
office of Vice President
of John Adams Academy Scholar Government
of John Adams Academy Scholar Government
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to the best of my knowledge and ability,
to commit myself
to commit myself
to serving the interests
to serving the interests
of the scholar body,
of the scholar body,
and to further
the
goals and objectives
and the goals and objectives
of John Adams Academy.
of John Adams Academy.
I hereby install you as Vice President of John Adams Academy Scholar Government. Senators, please rise. Senators, do you agree to support the mission of John Adams Academy and to adhere to our 10 core values? Okay. Please raise your right hand and take the oath of office. Repeat after me. I state your name. Do solemnly pledge to faithfully execute the office of Senator of John Adams Academy Scholar Government to the best of my knowledge and ability, to commit myself to serving the interests of my republic and to further the goals and objectives of John Adams Academy. I hereby install you as Senator of John Adams Academy Scholar Government.
Dean representatives, please rise. In the presence of honored guests and members here assembled, repeat after me. I state your name. do solemnly pledge to faithfully execute the office of Dean Representatives of John Adams Academy Scholar Government to the best of my knowledge and ability, to commit myself to serving the interests of my Dean, to adhere to the 10 core values, and further the goals and objectives of John Adams Academy. I hereby install you as Dean Rep of John Adams Academy Scholar Government. Congratulations.
I'd like to invite our Cabinet, our Senate, our Dean Representatives, and all Vice Representatives to please stand. Scholars, honored guests, those standing around you are this year's Scholar Body Government. You can take a seat. All right. Hi everyone. As you know, my name is Sharon Phillips. I'm a senior here at John Adams Academy, and I am so blessed and thankful to have this opportunity to speak with you today. I'd like to thank our school's founders, Dr. and Linda Foreman, for giving everyone a reason to gather here today. We are all aware of the many changes that have been made to our scholar government system, and I can confidently say that these changes are all for the better. With our new Demon Republic system, there are exponentially more leadership opportunities for many more scholars to be involved in our scholar government. Not only are all of these involved scholars called to lead, but to serve as well, modeling the school's vision of developing servant leaders. We are all called to serve each other through leadership positions and in our daily life. Personally, this presidency has been a hope of mine for nearly 6 years, and it is truly amazing to even stand here today and say that this goal has been fulfilled. Surely I could not have done this alone. I am so grateful for all of my amazing mentors, teachers, family, and friends who have supported me through every step of this journey. And of course, it would be impossible for me to stand here now without my amazing partner and friend, Lexi Mitchell. Lexi, it still amazes me that we did it, and it's crazy to think that 1 year ago, we had absolutely no idea that this is where we would stand today. I can't wait to change the world with you, and I know we are going to make this the best year possible. I love you, sir. I'd also love to thank my cabinet members, Annie Trentman, Armani Tafoya, and Caleb Wilburn for being so supportive and enthusiastic about all of our goals and making it this far. We did this together. This is a group effort, and I'm so excited for this year. And especially, I want to thank every scholar who voted for us in our campaign, who believed in us and supported our goals, and who recognized how committed we are to making this an amazing year for all of you. So thank you. With all of our amazing cabinet, senate, and representatives, there are 3 main objectives that we aim to accomplish to make this year extraordinary: involvement, communication, and enthusiasm. Involvement through service in John Adams Academy's immediate community is something we greatly hope to emphasize throughout the scholar body. As Martin Luther King Jr. says, there is nothing greater than to do something for others. With a close partnership with this year's National Honor Society, we plan to hold fulfilling service projects and large-scale events to enrich our greater John Adams Academy community. Communication is a universally necessary component of cooperation. Scholar Council is the bridge between scholars and administration, so it's necessary that we use proper communication. As seen in the past, Communication has not always been Scholar Council's strongest quality. We can improve previous communication methods in 3 ways. Promptly relaying messages between scholars and admin, clarifying expectations and goals on both sides, and using a universal and simple medium to announce important information. Considering the importance of these 3 goals, my team and I decided to create the Chief of Communications position solely devoted to executing the fulfillment of these goals. We have also begun brainstorming several methods of receiving and delivering information to and from the scholar body in order to hear and consider your valuable ideas, thoughts, and opinions. Finally, as most here know, it is Scholar Council's responsibility to orchestrate numerous Scholar Spirit events throughout the school year. I hope to revamp this year's approach to pep rallies, theme spirit days, socials, and dances. In order to do this, we will turn to you, scholars, for themes, music requests, food ideas, and much more for socials and dances. Spirit Day themes will be taken from your requests and genuinely reflect the middle school and high school culture that you desire. Finally, pep rallies have received a dramatic makeover with the new Demon Republic system, and lots of friendly competition is to come. Ultimately, the key to achieving all of these goals will truly be through communication and compromise. Not everything that we hope for will be realistic or possible, but there are infinite possibilities for us all to bond together and enjoy this time. Looking at the year ahead of us all, I could not be more humbled, blessed, and excited to share these next several months with all of you. It is my personal goal to leave John Adams Academy with scholars feeling closer and happier than ever before. And I hope to leave every scholar with infinitely positive memories of this 2018-2019 school year. Thank you very much for this opportunity, and I can't wait for what lies ahead.
At this time, we will now have the privilege to hear from our Virtues Choir, along with, I believe we're going to have elementary choir, just Virtues? Okay, and our elementary choir.
So I want to say thank you and a congratulations to our new president and vice president. And let me just say, it is my fervent prayer that when this nation does install our first female president and vice president, that they are women of virtue who uphold the values of our founders like you two do. Ben awoke early that morning. It wasn't really his practice to get up early. He wasn't naturally an early riser, but it wasn't uncommon for him actually to be up before the sun. The truth be told, it was more common for him not to have gone to sleep yet when the sun was coming up. You see, Ben had one of those minds. He just couldn't shut it off. He was a writer, not so much of books, but of ideas, arguments, sometimes with others, sometimes with himself. He was a tinkerer. He'd dabble in this and that. He had a passion for demonstrating what was possible by challenging what was thought not to be possible. He was a thinker, an astute studier of nature, one who reasoned that if lightning never strikes twice in the same place, I better make that one strike count. And on occasion, he was a drinker. In fact, proving that deeply religious men do have a sense of humor, Ben once observed that beer is proof that God loves us and wants us to be happy. Sorry, founders, you got to take the questionable quotes with the good ones. But on this particular day, Ben had just one thought. How would he help move the work that he had begun nearly 11 years prior forward? How would he move it to a place of permanence? You see, of the 55 others that joined Ben on his journey, only 5 would join him today. As he headed out that spring morning, the warm humidity of spring in Philadelphia had a particular weight to it, a weight that was made much heavier by the task that lay ahead. It was May 25th, 1787, and Ben Franklin was resolute to the task at hand. As General George Washington gavelled to order the Constitutional Convention for the purpose of creating the foundation for governance of the newly separated colonies. Now, I was invited this morning to talk to you about what it means to live up to the Constitution. I think it's fitting that as we're here in a hall named after Jefferson, I think it's fitting that in order to answer that question, how do I live up to the Constitution, that we take a step back 11 years from the start of that Constitutional Convention to when Ben Franklin and 55 others met to deliberate and sign the Declaration of Independence. When in the course of human events it becomes necessary for one people to dissolve the political bands which have connected them to another, and to assume among the powers of the earth the separate and equal stations to which the laws of nature and nature's God entitle them. Nature's God, I can say that, right? I'm a John Adams. I can say God in school, John Adams, that's cool. Not only do we say God in school, we celebrate God in school at John Adams. Whew. I'll tell you, this speech is a lot rougher in public schools, but I give it anyway. To which nature's God entitled them a decent respect for the opinions of mankind, compelled that they declare those causes which impel them to the separation. We all know the next part. Feel free to say it with me. We hold these truths to be that all men are created, that they are endowed by their Creator with certain, that among these are life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Doesn't that feel good? Feels good to say that. Woo-hoo! They got life, they got liberty, pursue happiness. There goes happiness, I'm pursuing. See, all too often, we hit that part, we stop. We got dialed. We got the life thing going on. We got this liberty thing that's kind of cool. Can't get out of here. Pursue happiness. Economic progress, right? What if the founders immediately follow that up? What's the very next line? That to secure these rights, governments are instituted, by a king, by a bright light shining on somebody and makes me the king. Oh, I'm the king, give me time. No. Governments are instituted among men, universal term, among us, deriving their, what kind of powers? Just, God, I love being at this school. Most schools are, what's he talking about? They're just powers. Not their abusive, not their excessive powers. Deriving their just powers from the consent of the government. Mind blown. For the first time in the history of the world, a government is established based on the premise that those governed control the government. But what does it require? The consent of the governed. Now, there are two ways you can give your consent. Let's say our new vice president. Mom checks in. Hey, how you doing, honey? Whatever. You ready to go to school? Hey, we're having eggplant casserole for dinner tonight. Guess what she's getting for dinner? Eggplant casserole. Because she gave her consent. By not engaging, by allowing the status quo to move forward, you give your consent. Is that what the founders called upon you to do? Is that what the founders envisioned for you? That you would just sheeple along and quietly, without saying anything, let the ruling class do what the ruling class wants to do? No. The founders called upon you to be active in your consent. Be engaged in giving your consent. That was the only way to secure those blessings. Now, as the convention carried on for the better part of 4 months over the summer of 1787, in Philadelphia, sequestered away mostly in secret in Independence Hall through the summer in Philadelphia. You think it's warm in here right now? What do you think it was like in Independence Hall through the summer of 1787? Where they were mostly sequestered away in secret. None of them tweeted out what they were doing. None of them Snapchatted a picture of themselves with George saying, hey, we're here. Let's do a selfie, group selfie. Woo. No. They carried about the serious work of serious people. So with secrecy, as you know, with secrecy sometimes comes anxiety. Sometimes we're afraid of what we don't know. And a great anxiety was sweeping through the people during those 4 months. You see, they had fought to throw off a monarchy, and they were afraid that a monarchy was what might get established. And when the delegates to the convention finalized their deliberations and emerged from Independence Hall 231 years ago today, the anxious citizens had gathered outside in order to learn what had been produced behind those closed doors. A Mrs. Powell of Philadelphia asked Benjamin Franklin, "Well, doctor, what have we got? A republic or a monarchy?" With no hesitation whatsoever, Ben Franklin responded, "A republic, if you can keep it." So what does it mean to live up to the Constitution? For us, keep it. That's it. That's all that's required of us. We don't have to create it. We don't have to fight for it. We don't have to die for it, like many of Ben Franklin's friends did. We just have to keep it. How? By doing much of what you do here every day, by understanding it, by appreciating it, and through your active consent, defending it, so that our generation will, in fact, secure the blessings of liberty to ourselves and future generations.
So at this time, I want to thank you guys all again for being here with us today, our dignitaries, special guests, our board of directors, staff, scholars. I want to give an extra special thanks to our keynote speaker, Supervisor Kirk Euler, also to secondary headmaster Troy Henke, and to our new scholar government. This is the inaugural event in this building. We had the ribbon cutting, and then we came in here to experience this and take advantage of this beautiful building that we've constructed. And I want you to just take a moment and let that resonate with you. You know, choirs that were up on the stage, you know, you were the first performing choir that ever sang on the stage. Scholars, you were the first individuals to ever sit in those bleachers. You were the first ones to take advantage of this. This is a defining moment. Let that sink in for a moment, because as you take advantage of this beautiful building, keep in mind the role that you have, right? And when you graduate and you move on, you're a servant leader out in the world and you pass by this building, you'll have that memory and that joy to say, hey, I remember when I was there to be the first one to perform on that stage. I remember when I was there to be sworn in that new scholar government in that new beautiful building. So thank you very much, everyone, for being here with us. We're here to celebrate today the Constitution, and as we've heard our speakers talk about, it is up to us to keep it. In whatever way you can do that, and however you can serve, and whatever way you can be that servant leader, do what you can to keep it. Because as we heard earlier from our executive director, from that beautiful quote from Ronald Reagan, you know, freedom was not passed to the next generation in the bloodstream, right? In order for it to pass on, we have to protect it and pass it on inviolate. And that all starts with you. So thank you for everything you do. Please, I invite you to go about your day and to let this moment fill you with that joy and carry you forward for the rest of the school year.